Film editors use a style of editing called continuity editing that makes edits less visible and thus helps us forget we are watching a movie. One technique of continuity editing is using match cuts. Match cuts carry over visual or audio elements from one shot to the next to make the edit nearly invisible. There are three types of match cuts. First is a graphical match cut, which uses a visual element in one shot and carries over that element to the next shot. Second is a match on action cut, in which the movement of a character or object is carried over from one shot to the next. And third, a sound bridge, where an audio or sound element is used from one shot and carried over into the next shot. Let's take a look at examples of these three types of match cuts. This is the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. See if you can tell when the first edit occurs. Did you see it? Let's take a look at that scene again. This time, notice how the shape of the mountain matches the shot of a real mountain that was filmed on location in South America. This is an example of a graphical match cut that makes the edit almost invisible. Here's another film that opens with the match cut. This is Martin Scorsese's Hugo. The first shot in the film is a close-up shot of the ticking parts of a clock that will transform into the streets of Paris. Let's take a look. As we watch it again, pay attention to the circular cog in the middle and the straight bars that extend out from that circular cog. These shapes are matched with the round turnabout and straight streets of the city, a graphical match cut between the clock's parts and the city's roads. Let's take a look at one last film that uses match cuts in the opening scene. This time, we are looking at the film Citizen Kane. There are many reasons why the film critics consider Citizen Kane to be one of the greatest films of all time. The use of match cuts in the opening is a small part of why this film was way ahead of its time. As the film opens, you will notice that the eye is drawn toward the lighted window of the castle in the upper right-hand corner. This is because that lighted window is where we are going through a series of match cuts that will take us there. Notice how each time the edits dissolve into the next shot, we get closer to the castle, but the location of the window remains fixed. The window is the visual element that ties together this series of match cuts. As we get closer and closer, the castle gets bigger and bigger, but the location of the window always remains constant. Something interesting happens when we get right up to the outside of that lighted window. As the light goes out and then comes back on, we have been smoothly transitioned from outside the castle to inside. How'd they do that? This is simply a graphical match cut using the shape of the window as the visual element that ties the exterior shot perfectly to the interior shot. While graphical match cuts carry over the shape of an object from one shot to the next, a match-on-action cut uses the movement of a character or object to connect the two shots. Let's take a look at an example from Pixar's short film, Paperman. This edit is very quick, as most match-on-action cuts are, so let's take a look at it again, this time in slow motion. As the man reaches out with his arm for the paper, the edit cuts from a close-up shot of the man to a close-up shot of the woman. It is the movement of his arm that is being used to match the two shots together. Sometimes match-on-action cuts are used to transition scenes from one location to another. The next clip is a classic example of this from the movie Crash.
You know what those are?
Can I have them?
Did you see any white people in there waiting an hour and 32 minutes for a plate of spaghetti? Huh?
As the woman exits the door, we anticipate her coming out the other side, but the match-on-action cut changes the scene and location by having two new characters exit the door. One final example of a match-on-action cut, again from the movie Crash.
And leave big slobbery suction rings on every dashboard you find? Why the hell do you do that?
Look at the way your crazy ass drive. Then ask me that again.
In this edit, it is not the movement of characters, but rather the movement of the cars that take us from one scene and location to the next. Both graphical match cuts and match-on-action cuts use visual elements. A sound bridge is a type of edit that uses audio elements to connect two shots together. Let's take a look at an example from the film Titanic, when the scene transitions from the introduction of Rose to the introduction of Jack.
It was the ship of dreams to everyone else. To me, it was a slave ship, taking me back to America in chains. Outwardly, I was everything a well-brought-up girl should be. Inside, I was screaming.
In this clip, the sound of the ship's horn is not only symbolic of Rose's screaming, it is a sound bridge that connects the two scenes together and foreshadows the connection between the two characters, Rose and Jack. This last example of a sound bridge comes from the movie Crash. Listen for the audio element that connects the two scenes together.
Well, then I guess the big mystery is who gathered all those remarkably different cultures together and taught them all how to park their cars on their lawns?
Door slamming is the sound bridge that connects the scenes. When the door is slammed in one scene, it wakes up a person in another scene. Now it's time to see if you can distinguish the difference between a graphical match cut, a match-on-action cut, and a sound bridge. Watch the following scene from the film Frida and identify what type of continuity editing is being used to go back in time from an elderly Frida Kahlo on her deathbed to a youthful Frida Kahlo running down the halls of her school. So what type of match cut did you see? If you said match on action, you are correct. It is the movement of the elderly Frida's head coming up from the pillow to the shot of the youthful Frida's head running away from the camera that is the match cut. Okay, one last clip. What type of match cut is being used in this scene from Titanic?
The china had never been used. The sheets had never been slept in. Titanic was called the ship of dreams. And it was. It really was.
What type of match cut was used? If you said a graphical match cut, you are correct. It is the shape of the bow of the real sunken Titanic at the bottom of the ocean that is matched with the bow of the movie set Titanic that makes this flashback seamless. Match cuts try to make edits as invisible as possible to help you forget you're watching a movie and get lost in the story. Now you know the difference between the three types of match cuts: a graphical match cut, using visual elements such as shapes and objects; a match-on-action cut, using the movement of characters and objects; and a sound bridge, using audio elements to connect two shots.